Tonight, a car that wanted to be a Lamborghini, another that was sold as a piece of fruit, and one that proved the British still had a thing for big V8s and even bigger reliability issues. Welcome to 1977, the year of Saturday Night Fever, the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and the rise of hatchbacks that thought they were revolutionaries. Petrol was expensive, trousers were flammable, and manufacturers were either trying to save the world or blow its doors off. First, the Rover SD1 3500, a stunning V8-powered fastback designed by the British to take on the Germans. It looked like a Ferrari Daytona, drove like a barge, and spent most of its time sulking in driveways. Then, the Renault 14. France's peculiar attempt at a practical family hatchback. Renault gave it a sideways engine, plastic bumpers, and advertised it as the Pear. They also promised minimum space for the engine, maximum space for the passengers. What they delivered was confusion, corrosion, and seats that felt like warm baguettes. And finally, the Fiat X1, a mid-engine sports car for the masses. Designed by Bertone, as gorgeous as a baby Lambo, and about as practical as spaghetti in a toolbox. But oh, how it handled. 3 cars, 3 wildly different philosophies, 1 mad year. This is not just about specs and numbers, it's about ambition, failure, and a whole lot of rust. So, fire up your analog time machine, turn up the disco, and join us as 4 Wheels and Fuel explains every car in Top Gear Series 1, Episode 6, from the Targa Top Toy to the V8 Cruiser to the fruity French innovator. It's 1977, and it's going to get weird.
Ever since the introduction of the Rover, we've been developing ways to advance the Rover driving experience. The new Rovers are ready, with their redesigned interiors and new coachwork. Come and test one and see how we're advancing the driving experience.
Now here's a car that promised to drag British motoring out of its polyester slacks and into something resembling a velvet suit, the Rover SD1 3500. It looked like it had been stolen from Ferrari. Long bonnet, fast back tail, and a nose that gave off serious Daytona vibes. Under that sleek bonnet, a 3.5-litre aluminium V8 from Buick. Hand-me-down power, but effective. It made 153 horsepower, which meant 0 to 60 in around 8.5 seconds and a top speed of 124 miles per hour. Just fast enough to outrun your own build quality issues. Inside, it was a modernist dream. The dashboard was modular, meaning it could be swapped between left-hand and right-hand drive markets. Clever, except it also looked like someone had taken inspiration from a till. But still, what a presence. The British police loved it, using them as high-speed pursuit cars across motorways. The jam sandwich paint job became iconic, and when it wasn't overheating or shedding trim, the SD1 actually drove well. Loads of torque, comfy seats, and a boot that could hold the remains of your expectations. Rover even chucked in headlamp washers. Absolute space-age stuff. And for all its flaws, it won European Car of the Year in 1977. So, yes, it broke down, frequently. But it looked brilliant while doing it. The SD1 was Britain saying, we can do executive, just not for long.
Ceci est une Renault 14. La Renault 14, c'est comme une poire. Devant, un un minimum de place pour le moteur transversal, derrière, un maximum de place pour le confort. Minimum de place pour le moteur, maximum de place pour le confort. La Renault 14, une idée nouvelle de la voiture.
Goûtez-la.
Ah, the Renault 14. France's answer to the question no one asked. What if a family hatchback looked like a pear? Yes, really? Renault themselves marketed it as the Pear. Not sleek, not dynamic, just fruit-shaped. Somewhere in Paris, a marketing team is still laughing. Released in 1976, the 14 was Renault's bold leap into the hatchback war. It shared an engine with the Peugeot 104 and boasted the slogan, "Minimum space for the engine, maximum space for the passengers." A noble goal, if only the engine hadn't been mounted sideways, clutch first, like a Picasso painting. And the gear stick? It wasn't connected to the gearbox so much as it vaguely suggested what you wanted it to do. You'd slot it into second and hope the car agreed. Reverse? Flip a coin. Inside, the Renault 14 was full of Gallic charm. The seats looked like they'd been designed by someone who once heard about chairs but had never sat in one. The dashboard resembled a melted synthesizer. The heating system was described as innovative, which is French for doesn't work. But it had some mad genius too. A hatchback boot so big, it made rivals look stingy, even if you had to wrestle the parcel shelf yourself. And those bumpers, pure 1970s grey plastic. Innovative at the time, but after a few summers they faded faster than your neighbor's curtains, leaving every Renault 14 looking like it had been dipped in dishwater. Of course, it rusted like a baguette left in the rain. Owners joked that the Renault 14 started oxidizing before it left the showroom. And in typical Renault fashion, its door handles were so flush with the body, people sometimes walked right past them thinking the doors were sealed shut. Still, for all its eccentricities, it was oddly likable, spacious, practical, and easy to park, assuming the handbrake worked. It sold reasonably well in France but flopped elsewhere, mainly because people prefer their hatchbacks to look like, well, cars. The Renault 14, part hatchback, part horticulture, 100% French nonsense.
Riempite questo spazio secondo la vostra fantasia, secondo i vostri desideri, secondo le vostre esigenze. Riempitelo di strade, di alberi, di mare, di cielo, di albe e di tramonti. Riempitelo a due con la Fiat X1 9, lo Spider dal motore centrale.
Fiat X1 9 5 Speed.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Fiat X1 9, a car so Italian it could have been born with sideburns and a gold chain. Designed at Bertone by Marcello Gandini, the X1 9 was Fiat's stab at making a mid-engine sports car for the masses. It looked like a miniature Lamborghini silhouette and sounded like, well, a sewing machine. But looks were everything. It had wedge styling, pop-up headlights, and proportions that screamed supercar, only in lowercase. Under the boot lid, you'd find a 1.3-litre inline-4, making 75 horsepower. That's not a lot, unless you're pushing a pram. But the magic wasn't in speed. It was in balance. The X19 handled like a go-kart wearing Italian leather shoes. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, near-perfect weight distribution. It was a cornering demon, even if it struggled to outrun your mum's Volvo. Inside it was tight, but surprisingly refined. The dashboard had that 1970s fighter jet thing going on, all dials and angles. The seats were low, the steering was sharp, and if you could squeeze into it, you felt like a race driver, at least until you hit a motorway on-ramp and were overtaken by a sheep. And it had a party trick, a removable targa top that stowed neatly in the front boot, giving you the thrill of a convertible without the leaks or floppy roof. The engineers were so clever, in fact, they designed crumple zones and integrated safety cells. It was one of the first small sports cars built with crash safety in mind. Take that, MG. Of course, it's still a Fiat, which means rust came as standard. It could turn into iron oxide, then you could say Cinquecento. And good luck finding second gear on a cold morning. The gearbox was as Italian as espresso, bold but a little bitter. Before 1977, though, the X19 had already flirted with rallying. Fiat and Bertone put together the X19 Prototipo, a lightweight, wide-arched Group 4 machine built for tight technical stages. Privateers in Italy and France hurled them through mountain passes, the little mid-engine wedge dancing between hairpins like it owned the road. It had the balance and agility to shine. But Fiat's motorsport money was tied up in the 131 Abarth, leaving the X19's rally career brief, but undeniably stylish. Still, for all its quirks, the X19 had soul. It was gorgeous, nimble, and actually safe. And unlike most mid-engine sports cars, this one didn't bankrupt you just for looking at it. The Fiat X19, a baby Lambo on a spaghetti budget. And there you have it. A British V8 that growled like a tiger but leaked like a teabag. A French hatchback with the soul of a Pear, and an Italian wedge that turned every corner into a catwalk. The 1970s were nothing if not bold, even when they got it wrong. Some cars take you from A to B, others take you straight back in time. If this one does that, we want to hear about it. Next week, we're going practical. We're talking about the little German hatchback that reshaped the roads, a British saloon that became every manager's company car, and a Japanese newcomer that quietly started taking over the world. So like, subscribe, and prime your cassette deck. 4 Wheels and Fuel is shifting into high gear. Episode 7 is going global.